Hello from Dallas, Texas. I'm Eileen Roche, and I'd like to welcome you to today's episode of Between Friends. Last week, I had so much fun in Houston, which inspired me to make a collage quilt on the weekend and then teach you how or share my top tips with on how to quilt a collage quilt, an art quilt. It's a little different than the typical quilting that we do with our embroidery machines. And let's just kind of take a look at uh, let's talk about the 5 top tips that we're going to do. And of course, today's program is brought to you by Hoop Mat. That's our product of the day. And you know, Hoop Mat is handy in every single embroidery project that you do, whether it's quilting with your embroidery machine or just regular embroidery. It keeps that base, the metal base of Snap Hoop Monster flat, or a standard hoop, keeps that outer ring still so you can concentrate on the placement of the fabric, the stabilizer, and that inner ring. So anyway, thanks for all the kind comments. It's so nice to have everybody joining us. We have Raymond from Arizona and Lynn Shepherd's tuning in from South Carolina, and Phil Beck's nice to see you. You watched all of us on YouTube. Thanks for doing that. All Brands did a beautiful job from the quilt show. I think they were broadcasting all day long. And I did a tour through Quilt Fest last Thursday and also kind of walked you through the quilts and made some personal commentary. Just all my opinions, believe me, ladies. So forgive me if I flubbed names or techniques. I did the best I could on the fly, and it was an awful lot of fun. So let's see. We have, I do want to share with you a quick recap of Quilt Festival, so you could just see what my inspiration was for today.
Let's say hello to Retha Ranke. Hi, Retha.
Hi.
But take a look. Look at that booth. It's like if you love fabric, this is the place. I just love standing in this booth because all these charming little creatures she has created. She designs the fabric, and we'll just get a quick look inside. It's probably really crowded. It always is. So as you can see, it is, hip to hip in here, but just look at her samples. It's just a happy, happy place to be. And there's Laura right there, working hard, taking people's money. I won't bother her. Look at these samples.
Was it? I mean, I just am mesmerized by her artwork, Laura Heine, and there's so many artists there, believe me. But I just have always had a fondness for that collage quilting, And through the years, I've done some simple ones. I did the seahorse quilt. That is one of her patterns. About 6 years ago, and I gifted that to one of my sisters who lives in Marco Island, Florida. But I've played, with like little ones. Here's a little, dog portrait of collage. I just had some fun with that. Here's another one that's solid fabrics, but still kind of collage work, right? But I was inspired in Laura Heine's booth to buy the bee pattern. So let's take a look. And now I don't sell this pattern. This is available over at her website. There it is up top, fiberworks-heine.com. And she sells this kit as the teeny tiny kit, but it's not really that tiny. It finishes at 16 by 20 inches because she often recommends that these teeny tiny kits are used to wrap around a canvas. And of course, those canvases, a basic size that is readily available is 16 by 20. And I'll tell you, the seahorse that I made was quite large, like 4 feet. And it took a lot longer to quilt, to quilt the whole thing. But teeny tiny, I did in a weekend. And some of you noticed that my sister-in-law was with me during Quilt Festival. She helped kind of guide the way through the booths and so forth. And she's a new quilter. That's Kathy Colvin, my sister-in-law from Wisconsin. And she just started quilting this summer. I mean, amazing, right? she jumped in. She also did the bee quilt. So we both finished it on the weekend. And she flew home to Wisconsin, Minneapolis on Monday morning with her completed quilt. Oh, I love that. When does that happen, right? Anyway, okay, so let's see. Oh, Joanne Banco, she says she bought 3 of Laura Heine's patterns. Which ones, Laura? Joanne, because I also bought the whale, the seahorse, again, in the small size, and the jellyfish. That was like a combo pack or something. But anyway, let's see. And Roseanne Riley, you say, oh my goodness, Retha Ranke is from my hometown and an amazing crafter. What a nice surprise. Well, yeah, so let me address that. That was the very opening of the broadcast last week. I had the honor of meeting Retha Ranke, who's always here in Between Friends every Thursday. So to meet her in person was so much fun. So much fun. That was really great. So let's see. Okay, let me stay on track here. So the next thing we're going to do is talk about our 5 top tips, right? And the first one is to brainstorm quilting options. Number 2 is to then audition and test those options. Number 3 is prep. First you got to make this collage, ladies, and then you have to prep it before you actually are going to quilt. And then the next thing you really have to consider is to protect the quilt during the quilting process. It's a lot of layers, a lot of tight little pieces that could easily get an edge lifted and caught under the embroidery foot. So you want to protect that top layer. And then also we want to execute. We really want to get it done. So we're going to walk through those 5 steps today. And we'll take, this isn't really a deep class on how to collage, quilt, and so forth, but this is just how I finished my quilt. So first off is, you have so much fun making the collage, and you focus on all the pretty fabrics. If you bought the kit that are in there, or if you're pulling from your own stash, this is so much fun. Carolyn Booth, you love that bee, isn't it? It's just charming. And a bee is such a wonderful symbol for, many people. It has a lot of meaning for different cultures around the world. It's going to adorn the wall in my sewing room at home because it's just such a bright, colorful explosion. I love it. So quilting options. Let's look at the masters, right? Let's look at Laura Heine, how she does it. Laura almost always uses a tiny grid, like a 1/4 or a 1/2 inch grid. And she matches her thread to, let's say, the main background fabric, right? Because there's a lot of background fabrics, but she just is pulling together all the visual elements that are in the quilt, adding a little bit of texture to it, but not overpowering it with quilting. Here's another one of her examples, Over the Rooftops. Again, that's a quilted tight little grid that she's got there. And then all these fun Halloween characters, again, the tight grid. So I think she's, has the right approach. Now, I will tell you, a grid like that is easy to achieve on a long arm sewing machine or a regular sewing machine, because you're just going to do straight line stitching, right? On an embroidery machine, that's a little bit more challenging because now you're trying to connect multiple lines of stitching in the next hooping. So, okay. Some other options might be, maybe you think of flowers, maybe you think of little jars of honey. We can find embroidery designs and quilting designs in all different shapes and sizes. And the best way to do this is to jump into software and test and audition the designs. So let's go ahead. I made you a quick video so you could see how easy this was to do. Use software to audition designs right on the quilt without taking a stitch. Go to File, Load, Backdrop. Locate the image on your computer and click Open, and it appears right on the screen. Change the size by selecting Scale to Size, and then in the Properties box, just insert the correct size of the quilt. In my case, it's 23 inches wide. And then click Apply. Zoom in so you get a better view. Everything will stay in the right scale as you bring in embroidery designs. It's that simple. I mean, I love that. Now, we often instruct that you can place a ruler in the image, and that will help you determine the scale. But I could also just measure my quilt and know what size that was. And that's what's really important about, getting the scale correct, because without it, without it, you don't really know, what you have. And this cuts down on printing numerous templates, but we'll get to that. So, um, here's an edge-to-edge design that's in my software. This is a design that we call Happy Flowers. And so, I said, well, let me look at that because it's a floral design, but it's not really quite right, is it? Because, the flowers are awful big. There's an awful lot of vines. It's really competing with the bee. Now, I could shrink it down, but then my embroidery, all of my stitches would be so tight together. I think it would be just too dense. Now, remember, in this illustration, in today's class, all the quilting designs that I'm showing you are in black thread, so you can really see it. And when we actually stitch it, we probably would use a lighter shade of thread, so it wouldn't be that intense, but still, it gives you a good visual of what you're going to wind up with. Okay, here's a good alternative for that single design channel quilting. So I told you this is just a straight line of quilting, the image on the left. And then when you are trying to rehoop, you have to connect all of those individual lines of stitches. That's very challenging. Even if you have the top of the line machines with the scanner or the projector, it's still very challenging. So a good alternative to that would be to just rotate that top, the second design at a 180 angle. And now it just creates a new kind of grid. Let's take a look at what it appears over the collage. Not so horrible, right? I kind of like that. It would be easy to execute, very doable. And of course, in a lighter shade of thread, it would be much more pleasing to the eye for sure. Okay, so now let's go ahead and take a look at a different type of embroidery design that I created in my software.
In Perfect Embroidery Pro, select the Artwork tool and select Hexagon. Draw the cursor across the screen to make a hexagon. Go into the Properties box, change the size to 0.95 and click Apply. Now select the hexagon, right-click, and select Convert to Run. Now use the Border tool. With it selected, enter 6 across, 6 down. Vertical distance is 0.25, and put a check mark in the offset every other column. And okay, there's your grid. Now let's clean it up. At Edit, select Optimize Sequence, select it again. Under Edit, go Optimize Entry and Exit. And there's your beautiful grid. You can change the stitch length, the color, whatever you'd like.
Can you believe how easy that is? I mean, that is really sweet. So this is what it looks like, stitched, overlaid on the backdrop, the collage quilt. Let me just address this one question that Anne had asked. So she says, do we still have a copy of the Toolshed software that has a trial period? So Anne, you are free to download the Embroidery Toolshed from our website, and we'll run that link in just a moment if you just hang tight. And when you download the Embroidery Toolshed, you'll have a demo version of every one of our software programs. You will not be able to save a design in it, but you can go in and explore and do everything I just did and learn how to use it, and then decide if you'd like to purchase. So of course, when you download Embroidery Toolshed, you will have the complete use of the free Embroidery Toolshed, and that allows you to resize a design, to copy, paste, and print a template of the embroidery design. So I hope that answers your question. Thanks for asking that. Okay, so let's see. And Anne Philbeck, you'll watch again to make sure it's in your brain. Absolutely. I don't expect you to grasp some of these software techniques in the minute and 30 seconds it takes to watch the video. But I do encourage you to come back and watch those lessons again. Or, when you're on your software, right, maybe watch the video on a tablet or a cell phone so that you can mimic or duplicate the steps that we're doing in the video right on your software. The best way to learn how to use software is to just use it. You can't break software. So don't be afraid. Just use your software. Every time you go into software, you get to be a little bit better at learning it. And let's see, so crazy. She wants to know, is it possible to save this design in CLI long arm extension? We'll look that up. We do save in almost all long arm formats, but I'm not sure about the CLI. That kind of sounds new to me, but maybe not, because I don't have a long arm. So we'll see. All right. So now let's jump back into PowerPoint and take a look at the scale. Now I'm zooming in on that backdrop in the software, right? And I can see that my stitches are, they're really stitches. I made them red just so I could really see them separating from all that black and white fabric that's behind it. So let's see. So, I think that the scale of these hives is a little large, right? Each individual hexagon is bigger than the eyeball. So I'm going to just scale that down a little bit. And this is a bit more pleasing to me. So I was satisfied with this size, and then that's what I went with for sure. For sure. Let's see. Catherine McFarland says she has Perfect Embroidery Pro software, but you do not have the time to really figure it out. Well, sometimes, Catherine, we have to take those big tasks and simplify them. So like today, maybe after this live, you say, okay, I'm going to do what Eileen just did. Just that. That's all you're going to do today, because here's the steps that I just laid out for you, right? Follow those simple steps. Maybe repeat it again tomorrow. Do it 2 or 3 times, and then you're an expert. Don't do a hexagon. Maybe do a circle. Maybe do a square. Whatever would be your choice. And then next time you're in Perfect Embroidery Pro, say, okay, I'm going to make a quilt label. So, use the text tool and write out your text. Learn a little bit about the text feature in Perfect Embroidery Pro. They're big programs, right? It's like Adobe Illustrator. I would love to be a master at Adobe Illustrator. And there's so many tools and so many layers and right? It gets confusing. But if I just go in and I learn to do one topic or one technique at a time, it's so much easier for sure. Okay, and Marianne Dublakis says, sign up for a She Shed webinar. Yep, we have all kinds of webinars. All right, so let's go back to PowerPoint. And now you can see how many hoopings this is going to take me, right? So it's really 6 hoopings. I colorized each individual hooping so that you could just get a clear visual onto, how many hoopings it's going to be, right? And of course, that depends on your hoop size. So I could have made those hives smaller, or, multiple columns or bigger, whatever. So, that's your hoop size that determines how many hoopings you're going to have. All right, so next up, let's talk about prepping. Let's see. Okay, Jackie says that she really wishes Embroidery Toolshed had just a few fonts. I do have PEP, but her students don't. Well, Jackie, you can buy just the fonts, just a grouping of fonts that will load into Embroidery Toolshed. It's like a $99 investment, I think. It's not that expensive, and it gives you maybe 10 different fonts. You go to our website and you could explore that option, and maybe I'll get Ashley Jones to address that in a future Between Friends episode. But I understand, it's good. We have excellent software, and there's different ways that you can buy it and purchase it. Okay, so let's go to the overhead cam and take a look at prep. Well, first off, the first thing you're going to do, here's my hoop mat. That's there, right? So that, because I'm going to be working, and I have printed my print and my hive template on print and stick target paper. And in Embroidery Toolshed, I get an arrow and a crosshair, and it prints it out in, actual size. So this is what I will use on my quilt. Now, print and stick Target template paper is really sticky, right? See, that's sticking to my hand. This is a fresh piece. This is not the one I used to actually quilt the bee, but I printed a new one so you could see what I do when I'm going to use a template on a collage quilt. I am going to add a lot of lint to the back of that template, right? I'm going to put it on batting and lift it maybe 1 or 2 times, and that's going to cover a lot of that adhesive with just, the fuzz of batting, right? And that it lets me have a little bit more confidence when it comes time to add the template to my bee. Because, up here in this corner, here, let me pull that down so you can see. Up here in this corner, there isn't really any fabric, right? I mean, multiple layers. But when I get in this area, I don't want to pull any of my flowers off, right? I want to make sure that everything stays intact. So once I print my template, I fuzz the template, right? Add some fuzz to it. And I'm going to store it right here on that protective paper that it comes with. And we always store it on the shiny side. Can you see that that's shiny? That side, as compared to the other side, is a bit flat. And in person, it really has, the difference between the right and the wrong is quite significant. As you can see, this is matte and this is shiny. So it always stick it to the matte. And you are going to fuse the daylights, steam the daylights out of this collage quilt, right? Laura Heine says to use Steam a Seam 2 for all of the steps for layering the backing and the background fabric and all of the collage pieces. So there's quite a bit of adhesive in this quilt. But sometimes, edges can get lifted and so forth. So make sure you give it a really good final press. And then layer it with your batting. Now cut that batting wide, like 3 inches beyond, each edge. So if this is 23 inches wide, then I cut my batting 29 inches wide so that I have extra fabric to hoop. Not fabric, but batting. Now, if you struggle with hooping with a magnetic hoop, you may consider adding a leader fabric. Just a scrap of fabric that's about 3 inches, and sew that, baste it to the edge of the quilt, and you'll be able to reuse this fabric later on. It's a temporary hold. You don't even have to do right sides together. Just, it might make hooping it a little bit easier because you have more body in this area. Sometimes when it's just batting in a magnetic hoop, it could be difficult to separate the top and so forth when you are advancing the fabric. I do baste my collage quilt to the batting all the way around the edge, just with a 1/4 inch foot and a really long basting stitch. And now I am going to wrap this on a 16 by 20 canvas. So I know that I'm going to lose about 1.5 inches on each side. So I didn't really worry about having a perfect basting line for sure. And so that's really important. Now, I didn't baste inside. I did pin baste, maybe 3 or 4 pins in the interior of the quilt before I basted. And once I basted, I then removed them. I didn't need them any longer. And you have to be careful when you insert a pin into any kind of fused fabric, because it can leave a permanent hole, and that may be undesirable. So, that's your choice. Okay. So I think we covered the prep. That's really important. And now let's head back and look at step number 4, which is protect the layers. Now, I did already mention about protecting the layers, that we would give it a really good final steam at the iron, and follow the instructions that come with the fusible product that you're using. But it's okay if you have any little loose edges to go ahead and apply a glue stick to the edge and then firmly press that down to make sure it's all going to be flat in one piece. And then, as another final step, you could use tulle to cover the whole quilt, and you could just base that in place. See, so right now here, let me leave this in. I have this is a line of black. You can barely see it, right? Here's a line of blue, which probably wouldn't be appropriate for this project, but again, it blends very well. But look what happens when I do the this yellow tulle, because there is an awful lot of yellow here. I mean, my goodness, you don't see it at all. You really don't see it at all. And it doesn't create any darkness. It doesn't change the value of the fabrics. So maybe I should come up a little closer to the camera so you can get a better look. And I'll just lift that up. You really can't see where that is, right? You really can't, but it's there. And that would make a nice, safe way to quilt. Did I do it? No, I didn't do it. And you'll see what happens in a while. Okay, let's see. What else is for protect? Let me check my notes. I got a lot going on here. Oh yeah, and consider a layer of tulle. But really, don't ever be afraid to use that Elmer's glue. It's great stuff. And there's many different collage quilters out there. Laura Heine is fabulous. There's Emily Taylor. She is the collage quilter. There's Susan Carlson, who is just an extraordinary collage quilter. I've seen, she's maybe if you're familiar with her work, she's known for a crocodile who is about 13 feet long. It's absolutely amazing to see. So, and she uses glue a lot for sure, and tulle. So anyway, good tips from all of those folks. Okay, and then it's time to execute, right? Absolutely time to execute. And that is where our hoop mat comes into play. So normally when I'm doing when I'm quilting with my embroidery machine, I'm usually starting in the center. But on an art quilt like this, and it's small, right? It's only, like I said, 23 inches in length and about 19 in height. So I'm going to start at just one corner, and I'm going to put that bottom frame down on hoop mat and then place my quilt in position. I'll get my template and stick that in the corner. I'm going to start right there in the corner because I want to go right to the edge. And, I want to make sure I can get there. So I'm feeling the metal frame underneath, which you probably can't see. So let me bring that down a little bit. So here's the metal frame right here. So I have that in position, and then I take my top and I place it perpendicular, aligning those edges, then I'm just going to drop it. And, I'm probably too close, so that's not going to work out. But what's so nice is that my hoop is not moving because it's on hoop mat. So I'm just going to move this over a little bit. And now when I hoop, I am going to be in the right position. Okay, so I'm using a really large hoop for this small design. And that's okay. Give yourself some wiggle room. Don't stress out so that, like if I had doubled this design and tried to fit it in this hoop, which it would fit because this is only 6 inches and this is a 12-inch hoop, too stressful, right? Just don't be afraid of rehooping. Don't be afraid of rehooping. So we'll do that. And then I want to go over to, so let's go ahead over to PowerPoint so you can take a look at my actual quilt on my machine at home. And I started in that upper right corner and did my first set of designs. Now it's time to connect to the next row. So I often use painter's tape because it really provides a strong visual line for me to align the next design. The idea is that the quilting that we're adding, we don't really want it to be so bold, like in black thread, because then it just adds too much busyness to the quilt itself. So when we use a kind of medium tone thread, it's going to blend with those fabrics and it can be hard to see when you're lining it up. So that's why I use the painter's tape. That allows me to connect one row of designs to the next. And I'll show you what I do. I actually put it right, and I'll do it horizontally. So I position the tape right at the edge of the embroidery design, right at that edge. And then I know when I'm going to connect to the next design, I need to space my second design just a little bit away, just about a 1/4 inch, because that's the spacing between each design, right? So that gives me a nice straight edge, and I know that I'm straight, if everything's parallel. It's awesome, super easy to do. Yeah, so let's see, Roseanne Riley wants to know, does the hoop mat work? The hoop mat works with all hoops, standard embroidery hoops, those baby lock magnetic hoops, doesn't matter, any hoop at all. What is the embroidery stitch size in the magnet hoops? Is there a chart? Embroidery stitch size in the magnet hoop, in the magnet. Okay, well, Candy, the hoops are sold in specific sizes. So an 8x8 hoop accommodates a 200 by 200 millimeter hoop. So whatever hoop size the machine company makes, our hoop is the exact same sewing field. So, a 5x7 in a baby lock hoop is a 5x7 in a dime hoop. We don't change anything on the machine. Our hoop is read just like your standard hoop. Okay, let's see. What else is next about execute? Oh yeah, here we have some other slides, because things are going to happen, right? It's not all perfect, believe me, especially the night before you decide to do. Oh, let's teach this. Okay, so yep, at the edge, I should have done a better job of babysitting. Well, first off, this is what you should do. When you are stitching, quilting a collage quilt, stay with the machine. Don't turn around and go on your laptop. Don't answer the phone. Just stay and look at that hoop, which I don't do. And this is what happened. So, but I caught it right away. It was only a couple stitches that I had to take out. The first thing I do is I remove the foot. I just stop and raise the needle, and I remove the foot. And then that lets me remove some of the stitches so I can release the foot. Now, Janya wants to know, did I use stabilizer? No, I didn't use any stabilizer. And Janya, I never use stabilizer when I'm quilting with my embroidery machine, because I'm just adding running stitches. That's what a quilting design is. They're just basic running stitches. Same as if you were sewing on fabric or on a quilt sandwich. You wouldn't add any stabilizer at that time either, right? You would just sew those straight lines. So same thing. Okay. All right, so how do we fix that? Well, like I told you, right? You take out the stitches. But what I should have done, and what I did after to the rest of the edges, after that happened, I sliced just a tiny little piece of adhesive sew and wash. Now, adhesive sew and wash has a sticky side, and of course, it will wash away if I wanted to. Then don't care. I'm obviously never going to wash this. It's a wall decoration. So I just cut a narrow strip and I put it right there to cover the edge, and it just smooths that whole edge down onto the batting. And I don't have to worry about it, the foot getting caught there again. And Linda Booth says she's so glad to see that even Eileen has problems sometimes. Oh, Linda, you would be so disappointed if you knew how many struggles I have in my embroidery machine. It's also been the reason why I have been able to invent so many techniques and products, because I stitch just like you do. And I get so frustrated and just say, gosh, there's got to be a solution to this problem. And that's how we've come up with a lot of our products. So let's see. Yeah, and Elizabeth Dickerson, you really like the painter's tape idea. It's also really great if you have the scanner on your machine. If you have a Baby Lock or Brother machine that has the scanner, and because the scanners are fantastic, right? But if you're using a color of thread that's the same shade as the fabric underneath, it's often very difficult to see those stitches. So I just put that tape there before I scan, and then boom, that blue tape lights up and I know exactly where I'm going, which is just great. So let's see. Okay. And then what do we have next? Well, the next thing we have is actually on the house. Let's see if there's any more questions before we go on to some of our, I want to show you on the house what's coming up. What's coming up, right? Okay, so let's go ahead and run On the House so you can see, for those of you who don't know, On the House is a free design given to you every week here at Dime. And we've been doing it for all of 2022. Every Thursday is a free design released on our website. On the last Thursday of the month, I do a project featuring a new design, and you are also given that project and, of course, that free design. So throughout the year, we'll have 12 projects, 52 embroidery designs. They're all still available on our website, so you can take advantage of that at any time. We're going to continue that whole program in 2022. But, you know, there could be a time where we remove some of the older designs just because they take space, right? So take advantage and get them now while they're still there, for sure. We love this program. We've had an awful lot of fun designing that. And, you know, Deborah Jones has been really instrumental in collecting the artwork and then having it digitized and so forth. And then our friends over at OML Embroidery, Sue S. Brown, she leads us sew along on the Saturday following the release of the project. So you can, if you want to watch Sue stitch it out and watch Sue stitch it out, you can, and you'll enjoy that for sure. Now for Thanksgiving, that would normally be when we release our project and show it here on Facebook. The week of Thanksgiving, we won't have a Facebook Live, but we will release that project on Thanksgiving Day, that Thursday. So, you know, when you get done all your chores and your holiday celebration, you can go download that design and project. And I promise you, it won't be anything to decorate your Thanksgiving table because we'll be working ahead. Okay, so let's go ahead and take a look at On the House. That's adorable. Linda Molden says, it looks like I have a lot of catching up to do. I know, we're on week 40-something. There's a lot of catching up to do, but really take advantage of them. They are beautiful. And we most certainly appreciate all of you participating in On the House. And when you do stitch them out, please post on social media and tag it with hashtag Dime Sew Along. And we'll go ahead and find them and then we'll add it to that video. Wouldn't that be fun to see your design up there? So our free design this week, the On the House, is this beautiful wheat design that we encourage you to add a monogram in the center to decorate your holiday table if you'd like. And we just think it is just so beautiful. I can just see each napkin decorated with that, or maybe, you know, the bread basket has a linen covering and you could put it on there. And I love hearing these comments. Let's see. At Quilt Fest, Joanne Banco loves showing off the Kingstar metallic thread on the Thankful, Grateful, Blessed tea towel made by Reen. Oh, I love hearing that for sure. And Peggy Ann Abrams, she made this shy unicorn for her granddaughter. Isn't that wonderful? It is a lovely wheat design. It's very traditional. I think it's something that you'll continue to use over and over. Would make a great hostess gift for someone if you're going to their home, if you're getting out of cooking. So, use it, right? It's just lovely. Really love it. Lovely. So I hope you learned a lot today, and please subscribe to our YouTube channel. We love to see that growing. It encourages us to keep offering valuable content on here at Between Friends. So like us on Facebook, please subscribe on YouTube. That's how you'll be notified when we're going live, and we don't want you to miss a beat. So thank you everyone for joining me. Have a great day.